Well, we've had in the Department of Commerce, ironically, which part of the reason why I want to change the Department of Commerce into something that's more about promoting commerce than just about regulating. But I've had builders, home builders, bring up to me changes that were made years ago, where they've got a whole division that regulates building, and where they had a wind bracing requirement that has them build homes to the level of a hurricane. Well, obviously, I don't think any of us have seen a hurricane here in the state of Wisconsin. We have had standards in the past that ensure that it can withstand tornadoes and high winds and flooding and things of that nature. Many of these home builders who brought that to our attention said they questioned why that happened, and nobody could give them a specific answer as to why they needed to build it to that level. Again, these are the sorts of things that we kind of had a final check, and if it was more narrowly defined to comply with the legislative intent, I believe those are things that would get weeded out in the process early on.
Scott, if the agencies are being led by your political appointees, why would you then need to have it come to your desk? Because hypothetically, these are your cabinet members that would be overseeing these changes.
Yeah, a couple different things. One, in having served in the legislature, I remember seeing this in the past, but certainly this will help us. Just having this in the statutes, I think, will help reduce the number of requests for administrative law changes in the first place, which will streamline the process. So the things that do need to happen will probably happen more quickly. But Mick, for your question, long-term putting this in the statute ensures that not only for me as governor, but for any future governor, that there's a process. I saw in the legislature where an idea that started out might have been reasonable. As it was built throughout the process, it kind of got carried away. This would give one last check so that, again, someone who's elected and responsive to the voters has to be held accountable for making that decision and not just kind of passed off as, well, that's something the bureaucracy did. Really, the best way to describe this is about empowering the people through their elected representatives. And if anything, it's taking power away from the unelected bureaucracy and making sure that people who have to be accountable to the voters are the ones who ultimately have the final say.
So speaking on that last point, the Democrats came out today and accused you of doing a power grab. What do you make of that allegation?
No, I mean, in the end, this is about empowering voters, empowering the citizens of the state, and ultimately empowering elected officials, not just the governor, but by ensuring the very start of this process has to be something that can only go forward and comply with the intent of the elected representatives in the state assembly and state senate as to how they passed it. This is something that empowers elected officials to ultimately be accountable to the public.
Is there a concern, though, that people who are maybe writing these, so bureaucrats, people, that they're going to have to consider the political implications? So they're going to have to maybe start vote counting, and well, is the governor, does it put politics in something that shouldn't really be political?
No, I think, again, in the end, it puts accountability back in. That if you're going to see changes, Matt, these are changes that can't be narrowly defined within a vacuum. Again, with all due respect, and this is not beating up on people in the bureaucracy, but one state agency might have a narrow focus and not see the implications it has not only on other parts of state government, but it has on the citizens of the state of Wisconsin. Again, as elected officials, we have a larger responsibility than just one state agency. We have to make sure that things work as much as possible for all the people of the state of Wisconsin. So, again, if anything, what I think it will do is make sure that there's a broader consideration to things that have the full force of law. Again, when you look at the administrative code book and you look at the state statutes, it's hard to tell the difference to the average citizen who would see them, in a judge's quarters or in a law firm or things of that nature. It's because they both have the full force of the law. The only difference is one is voted on by those people duly elected. The other has much more of a pass review process. We want to make sure that that process is one that's as accountable to the public as possible.
Scott, are there any rules, regs, or code changes that were adopted over the last year or two that you want rescinded? I mean, you're speaking about the process going forward. Anything you want to back up and take off?
Yeah, we're going to look through all those, once we get going with our cabinet and the new administration. Today I'm not going to go through a laundry list of those, but believe me, there are things that need to be modified, altered, not only through the administrative code process, but probably the vast majority of those changes, Steve, we'll be making not just through modifications of administrative code, but through outright statutory changes. Because again, to me, the more we can define things in the statute, it's the better up for two reasons. One, most importantly, it's something where the public can hold someone accountable. It has to be passed, and the statutory change has to be passed by lawmakers, and the majority of the 132 elected in the Assembly and the Senate, and signed off by the governor. The other reason is it stands the test of time, you know, in the sense that it's something that's in the statutes, it's defined there, and it's not something that can be as easily altered if that is indeed a change that, to me, some of the changes that need to come into play are things that you don't just want temporarily, you want a long-term change.
But you're not naming anything adopted by DNR or AG or anything?
Oh, there are plenty of things out there I'd like to review, but again, process-wise, the reason I'm not bringing it up today is this is not about a laundry list of all the things I want to change. This is about establishing a process to ensure that the things maybe I have a problem with and others have a problem with would be reined in long before they happen. Again, another message, really, when we're trying to convey a message to small business owners that Wisconsin's open for business, one of the best ways we can do that is to say, the people who you elected, the people who you're going to hold accountable, are ultimately going to have more say in making sure the rules that come out of the administrative code are ones that work for all the people of Wisconsin.